Meeting in there with your caucus right after the adjournment. You said you had a message for them?
I actually had a gift for them. Commissioned William Crooks, who's a famous artist down here, and I had a painting done and had a copy for each one of the senators.
Very nice. It's a memento.
That's right.
A memento of a session that is...
Well, we did, as was pointed out by Senator Murphy, I think, that we do have the largest Senate caucus in America. And we have both Republican and Democrat, and we do have the largest number of Democratic senators in the history of the state of Illinois. So we worked real hard to get this group together, and it's a very closely knit group. And I think we had a great session with the cooperation with Republicans on a number of issues. We had a successful session. Obviously, the biggest disappointment was not passing a pension reform bill out of both chambers. Obviously, each chamber passed a bill, and I tried to, I think I voted for every one of the pension bills that we voted on in the Senate, trying to pass something on. Credit the governor for making it a top priority. I'm sure he's very frustrated we weren't able to pass it, but it's very, very difficult. Probably the most difficult bill that you can possibly pass. You're taking things away from people. It's not easy to do that, and at the same time, we had a very good budget. We were able to fully fund the pensions this year. We were able to withstand this year the eating away that the pensions has done, and all the other vital state expenditures. We were able to, put back money for higher ed and for education this year. But we can't rely on that in the future. That's why we have to pass pension reform at some point in time.
So what do you say? What do you say to constituents and say that any session short of pension reform is an unsuccessful session?
I wouldn't say that's one issue, a major issue. We were unsuccessful, but we did pass a number of other bills. Out of the Senate, we passed same-sex marriage. We passed Medicaid expansion. We passed a gambling bill, which would bring people back to Illinois. Unfortunately, the House wasn't able to pass the gaming bill or the marriage bill. But we did work, as I said, on the budget. The conceal and carry issue was probably one of the most difficult issues you can possibly have in this state, given the complexities of the state. And finally, that issue was worked out, and we did it, by compromising, by not passing the bill that the House passed over, forcing people to the table. And as a result, we got a fair compromise and avoided a real crisis if we had not passed a bill. So there's more issues than pensions. Pensions is important because it affects the budget. This year we happen to have done a good job on the budget, but next year it'll be almost disastrous if we don't have pension reform when we at the same time are talking about whether we should have our tax rates go down to 3.75. So that's what's going to be a real challenge. That's why we should have done it this year.
How do you resolve it?
I don't know. I've tried everything. I introduced Senate Bill 1 that combined both different bills which eventually passed each chamber. And I had some Republican support for a while until the business community said, no, we want to have our bill. You're fighting unions and you're fighting the business community at the same time. And that's what's so difficult. And I'm trying to, thread the needle, and it's very difficult.
Do you place the blame at the feet of the Speaker on this for not?
Of course not.
Isn't there a way that you could structure your choice option to produce enough revenue that the Speaker would be satisfied?
I hope so. We passed our bill with an overwhelming majority, more than 3/5. It was agreement with the unions because they obviously took 12 or 13 meetings. There was more savings that could be had there. That's why we passed a Senate bill over to the House so they could amend it, but they didn't call it. They didn't call 4 of the bills that we passed over there. So,
is the Speaker against your choice ID?
He sponsored that bill last year. He's entitled to change his mind, which he did. And he changed his mind and went with a different model, which obviously we think has constitutional challenges. But I'm willing to pass a bill that has constitutional challenges because I'm not on the Supreme Court. We'll let them decide. That's what we really need. The real disappointment is we don't even have a test case to go to the court because the business community was fighting that as well. It had to be their test case. So this is why it's so difficult. But it's not because we didn't try. It's and people shouldn't be. There's no blame to go around. It's just people have different positions, and it's difficult to get 30 votes on it.
So what happens next week with this governor calling leaders meeting? And where does he fit into all of this?
Well, the governor should be. can't criticize the governor for not passing the bill onto the governor's desk. So he did try to pass just about any pension bill, quite frankly. And so I'll be happy to talk to him. The problem we have now is the same problem we had last summer. You need 3/5 vote to pass a pension bill. Now, we happen to have passed the pension bill with 3/5 vote, so the only thing we could probably pass shortly is the one that we passed, or a variation of it. I would guess politically. Obviously, I called the bill that the speaker passed. It didn't have a lot of support, and it wasn't just Democrats that voted against it.
But the governor has criticized the legislature for playing this pension game, as
Well,
he calls it,
well,
$17 million a day. I mean, is
it's
this all a
obviously
game?
not. Well, you guys who cover us know it's not a game. I'm describing the complexities of passing a bill, and I'm sure the governor's frustrated. It's not a game. It's something that's very difficult to pass, and we weren't able to do it. But as I said, we passed a number of other major pieces of legislation, and so for that reason, I would say it was a successful session. With regard to pensions, we paid the full pension obligation this year, and we funded all of our liabilities. We have a number of liabilities which are driven by a formula. In the past, we have created old bills by not appropriating enough money to pay for those. This year in this budget, we've appropriated enough money to pay all those bills. So there won't be any new old bills. That's a major accomplishment, and you should really focus on it because it's a major accomplishment.
What would you say to those who wonder whether the Attorney General's potential run for governor had any political impact on the pension
I couldn't figure out
discussions?
how any of that speculation figured or played any role at all in any of these decisions down here. People could use that argument for everybody's actions. It never came up. The reasons why we weren't able to pass the bill were the reasons I just stated. It's really hard to pass a bill when people have different views. The Constitution is something which really throws us off. And as we found out, as I said in the recent debate on this last bill, the reason why we're in such bad shape is because we have different laws. We have different responsibilities that other states don't have. Most states don't pay for the local teachers. Most states don't pay for the universities or the community colleges. If we only had to pay for the state employees, we'd be fully funded. We wouldn't have this problem. So, and you can't even pass a bill to change that. So that's why it's so complicated.
If you had to do it over again, would you have waited to pass the gay marriage bill until the House was more ready?
The way to pass that bill was to pass it early. We passed it on Valentine's Day, before the opposition got geared up. And so that's why we passed it. And I don't know what happened over the House, but from what I've read, there was more and more opposition every week. So perhaps it would have been, it's certainly not a criticism in the House, but we passed ours early to get, before there was organized opposition to it.
Was there a trade in the works, a grand bargain that involved gambling and pensions and gay marriage, or two of the three?
I don't know about gay marriage. That's something we passed in the Senate on early in February. As far as the gambling bill, we passed that bill. And that was also over in the House, so I can't tell you what was going on over in the House.
So there was
and as
no
far as the
discussions?
pensions bill, all I can tell you there is the governor had said publicly that he doesn't want to call, he's not going to, sign a gambling bill if we don't have pension reform. That's the only link that I think you can find.
You think the marriage bill will pass either sometime within the next
Oh,
year?
it's inevitable. When you look at Senator Barrickman and Senator Menard voting for that bill, that was the big surprise to me. And I asked both of them, why'd you do it? He says, everybody I know under 40 is for this bill. So this is obviously going to happen when people realize that the most younger people in this country realize this is something we should do.
What would you say to Moody's and the other ratings agencies tonight?
They read the paper. That's how they do their analysis, from what I can gather. They read the paper. And, the paper, what you guys write, if you want to, the headline is, I'm sure the headline is probably going to be that we cut our pay. But after that, I'm sure, after that above the fold story, that it's going to depend on how you want to characterize this. I mean, we've passed major pieces of legislation. Unfortunately, there were different versions of this, and we couldn't get both chambers on the same page. But we certainly are acknowledging the problem, and we're going to do everything we can going forward to try to get a compromise. It's just it's so difficult, it's going to take a while.
Why can't you and Speaker Madigan, who have known each other for, half a century almost, figure this out together?
Can we round it down?
All right, 40 years. How about 40 years?
Yeah, that's close.
You're the godfather of his son. You were.
Well, it wasn't
leader.
about the speaker and I having a
I know, but the two of you have known each other for a long
I don't.
time. Why couldn't you
I'll
figure
just
this
tell you.
out?
I'll just tell you from my point of view. He passed the bill over here. I sponsored it and I called it. I can't order people to vote for bills that they clearly don't want to vote for, that the unions were working very much opposed to. And there is an issue in his bill concerning the Constitution, which I have grave reservations for, which I've made clear. I passed the bill over to there with it could be amended with the support of the unions only after being forced to do that when the business community said they can't even go along with the original Senate bill, one which had both bills in the same bill. That was the most frustrating part. The first bill that I introduced was the combination. That would have provided a way for both sides to vote for a bill. And that had some Republican votes until Ty Fainer, the commercial club people, and the Chamber of Commerce said, no, it's got to be our bill. That was the most frustrating part of this whole session. So if you want to point some blame, that might be a place to start.
But you worked out the economic development bill. You worked out the budget. You worked out numerous other pieces
Yeah, this
of
is a different
legislation.
category. This is a different category. It's as complex as it gets. And coupled
But
with
you
the
two aren't
Constitution.
not even in the same book, let alone
Well,
on the same page.
he sponsored the same bill last year before he was against it. He got it out of a committee.
Has he explained to you why he's switched positions?
Maybe he felt that we were going to pass it. And now that he's seen the vote, maybe we'll sit down and see if we can work out a compromise.
What about those 3 House bills that passed in March that came over here?
Justice Necritz declared them unconstitutional today. So we decided not
capital
to.
fact.
In capital fact, so we decided not to go ahead and call it.
Justice?
I wanted to get a test case
day?
in front of, I wanted to get a test case in front of the court, and apparently that wouldn't be a fair test case, according to the proponents of the other version. So that's why we didn't do it.
What would you say to constituencies, the 3 caucuses, the governors get behind one version of this, and they see the Senate Democrats as the roadblock to this getting done? What would you say to them?
They surely wouldn't be talking about me, because I sponsored the bill and voted for it.
With a special session.
Well, your caucus
Well,
was the difference,
and we had our
right?
actual roll calls where you can go talk to the ones that voted no, including the 7 Republicans. That's what I would say to those people who would ask that question.
Okay, good.
The special session accomplished it.
The special session is just like last year. This governor called a special session, and I urged him not to do it. It requires a 3/5 vote. We can't do anything until January 1st unless we have a 3/5 vote. Now, I happen to have passed a bill that has a 3/5 vote. So if he'd like to vote on that one in the House, which probably would have passed if it had been called by a 3/5 vote, that would be something we can do right away.
So what do you 4 leaders and the governor have to talk about in the coming week? When the governor convenes you to forge the comprehensive.
Yeah, Senator Radoni and I have worked together all year. She's very, we passed many of these bills, most of them, if not all of them, passed with bipartisan vote. And she is very open. She's very knowledgeable about this issue. She's open to the cost shift issues. And so I can't talk much to Representative Cross. But, I talk to the Speaker all the time. So I'm looking forward to seeing where people are going.
There was so
Governor
much
Quinn
talk about
right to
this.
criticize the legislature for bringing up, a CPS pension holiday bill and a college cost shift bill?
I know that they'll fail
without a comprehensive bill first.
Well, let me tell you something. There's going to be a huge problem with the Chicago school district. But I can tell you that there was great progress made in the talks between the teachers union and the school board. These 2 guys are not, best of friends. They made great progress, but we ran out of time. There is a deal that can be done there, but we ran out of time. The problem is the timing is that there's about a $400 million gap that cannot be made up by property tax increases that would result in huge, massive layoffs of teachers and increasing class sizes, and they have to start working on it in August. That's why that bill should have passed tonight. And so that's going to be a major, major issue, something that we're going to have to deal with. That's something that we probably have to come back here and work on, and unfortunately we'll have to do it with a 3/5 vote requirement.
There was so much talk about the pain that would be caused because of the pension squeeze, and yet we have a budget that everybody's thrilled with, no education
Well,
cuts.
we-
Does that set
no.
back the movement?
Not really. It helped this year to have a big, huge increase in revenues, but we know believe it's a one-time only. And so that's why it may have masked a little bit the real need for pension reform. Next year, Next fiscal year, we'll have $2 billion less money coming in. A year from now, when we're passing budgets, we'll have $2 billion because the income tax is going to go down on January 1st, 2015, halfway through that year. So this is going to be an even more urgent issue. Hopefully we can solve it before
Is that what's needed to get it passed? I mean, did the April surprise mean that people weren't willing to vote for controversial bills?
I don't think that was it this year, but next year we're going to have to do it because of the drop.